Hi, everybody. My name is Nick Ochoa, and I'm going to do a little walkthrough of Oculus Medium. I don't know if you had a chance to check out yesterday, but I had a chance to do a walkthrough of Quill and kind of show the different feature sets, the different ways that you can work with the tool set, and I wanted to show you what Medium was capable of. For those of you who don't know, Medium is a tool for sculpting, digital sculpting, and you kind of have this digital clay that you can play with and move around and scale up and down and flip around. And you also have some pretty powerful layers that you can work with and sort of manipulate and scale themselves, similar to how we showed Quill yesterday. But it's a very powerful digital sculpting tool, and I just want to give you a brief walkthrough of the different feature sets so you can have an idea of how it might be useful for you. So I think the best way to start would actually be by going through one of the tutorials. So Medium and their team did something really awesome, and I wish that more of the apps did this. They put together these introduction tutorials into how you can use Medium. So it goes everywhere from the basic controller introductions and how to use the different buttons to, okay, how do we make a tree? How do we create a house? And how do we work with layers? So I will go ahead and start by making a happy little tree. And one of the cool things you'll notice is that somebody will be there with me teaching me.
Welcome to Medium. In the next few minutes, I'll show you how to sculpt a happy little tree. While we're sculpting, try to keep your work out in this direction.
A happy little tree.
I'm going to be showing you how to do things.
I have all this stuff in the way, so
add clay between us.
I'll
Most of your
build
actions
it
will
on
use the
top of this
trigger on
guy.
your tool hand. Your tool hand is the one with the big antler on it. Try it now. Hold your hand straight out away from you and pull the trigger to add clay.
So
now I'll show you what to do if you make a mistake.
it's
On your
already
other
colored.
hand, push this thumbstick to the left, towards the back arrow. That'll undo your last action. Try it now to clear the clay you just added. Great. As we sculpt, I'll switch your tools automatically so you can follow along. You'll see a little countdown clock around each hand like the ones there right now, so you know how long you have before the next step.
So if you guys can hear
All
him,
right, let's
which I
get
hope you
started.
can,
Hold your hand upright
kind of walking me
and add in the trunk
through
of the tree.
the basics of this. So this is a stamp, one of the many that comes with
Use this other
Medium,
horn shape to add branches to your
and it's
tree.
a horn shape.
Here's how you change your tool size. There's a thumbstick on your tool hand. Push it forward and your tool will grow. Pull it back and it'll shrink. Add some different size branches to your tree.
Alright, so add these little guys. Kind of getting the outline of a tree here.
Use this inflate tool to add bulk towards the base of your tree.
So this is the inflate tool, and what it does is it kind of inflates the clay in the area you're pointing at. And so he's having me do it to
Now use
bulk up this
deflate
base.
to thin out some of the upper branches.
Oops. And now he's having me thin some of these upper branches out. So you can see you start with a base shape from the stamp, and then you can kind of manipulate it to do
Hold the trigger
what
down
you
and
need
move
to.
your hand around to add leaves to the tree.
And this is a leaf stamp.
Add some flowers for
Beautiful.
color.
And now I'm adding flowers, apparently. I don't know how I feel about the flowers on this tree. They're kind of big. It does add some nice color.
Now add some ground underneath your tree.
So he's having me add ground, but I already have some. I'll just add some more on top. So you can see these stamps do most of the work for me when it comes to Medium. I don't have to put much effort
Finally,
into
add some fallen leaves on the
working
ground.
with something so primitive, such as like a circle or a square, and then molding it from there.
Thanks for trying
I
medium.
can use these
I hope you
stamps,
had
which
fun
makes
making
it
this tree with
super
me.
easy. So we just made that tree. It was really fast. And the cool thing is that what Medium's allowing you to do is record yourself sculpting, and then you can actually share that. So if I were to do a tutorial, let's say, I can record myself using their camera, and you at home would be able to jump in just like I did and hear me walk you through the process. So that's also really unique, and I love that they're doing that, and I think more people should do that because it adds this sort of social presence in the room with you, and it really feels like you have a teacher there with you, and it's really, really helpful, especially with this tool, because there's so many awesome options that you can do, and it's hard to discover them all yourself. So that was just the tutorials. They have a bunch of them. This is my tree, and we can, take a seat under the tree. Predetermined worlds? No, there isn't any predetermined worlds, but you have this environment and you can manipulate it. So if I don't want the ground plane, I can get rid of it. I go to home and I go to settings, and so I can change the skybox, the ground plane. So now I'm just kind of floating in space, but it's a little disorienting, so I'm gonna keep it on. Or I can turn the skybox off, or set the color of it to something more suitable to my tastes. So let's see, maybe I want to do a...
He says he means like full decorated rooms.
Full decorated rooms. There's not full decorated rooms. No, there's no like cabin lodge that you can go sit in. That is a cool idea though, but they don't have it in this version. But you do have the ability to set the skybox and play with the different elements of this scene. And you also can do things like scene edit, where you can adjust the lighting. So you can grab the camera. You see, I'm kind of changing the lighting of this environment. You can see the shadow cast on the outside. So this is really cool and really powerful to bring that sort of lifelike feel to it. And over here you see there's a speaker, so if I had music playing on my computer, I can just like set this up and rock out to the music. And then for those recordings, this is that sort of playback location. So I would set where it is that I want them to be, and that's where they would be. So that's the way that you can play with a different environment, and those are the options that they have now. But I do think it's a pretty cool idea to be able to sculpt in like some really scenic spot. So let's go back to our tree, and I guess we can stick with the tree. But what I want to show you now is the different tools that you have to work with. So you have clay, of course. You have a paintbrush. So if I wanted to paint this ground, say, I don't know, a brown, I can totally do that. Grab the paintbrush, and you grip with the grip tool, which is this bottom trigger, and you can move it around as you're painting. So it gives you a lot of mobility and flexibility with the way that you can move around your sculpt, which I really like. So you can go there, and we can of course adjust the size with the analog trigger, or the joystick, sorry. So if I wanted to paint, just a little piece, or if I wanted to get this whole thing, I totally could. So the way I just deleted that was with that back button, and all your tooltips are kind of hidden around the outside. So up, that's my tools. Down, this is my layers, which I'll get to, and then redo, undo. And then this, you have the adjust size and the settings for whatever tool you're using. Okay, so let's get rid of this tree. I'm gonna start something a little new. In fact, I'm actually gonna open up something that somebody much more talented than me put together, and you have that in these sculpt section. So Oculus has some different sculptures that have been put together. Here's one of a face. Yeah, we don't need to scroll there. So you can see the level of detail that you can get sculpting in Medium. You know, this is 100% done in Medium, and the contours and these little wrinkles and details and the coloring of it is so lifelike. It's incredible how much detail you can put in here. And this is, you know, no rendering happening. This is just straight out of Medium. So right now we have the light kind of shining on his face. I would hit that scene edit button if I wanted to adjust that. Where'd it go? So I could play with the lighting, right? And it totally changes the look. It's a lot of fun. Great for playing with the different environments. If you're building an environment like our tree or maybe some mountain ranges, it's nice to simulate the sun and you get that nice casting shadow effect that's really lifelike and beautiful. I like it there. So this is a good example of anatomy and what you can do there, but I want to show you something that's a little bit more abstract as well. So click the home button. We kind of have them right there. Let me show you, let's try stone golem. So here he is, getting put together. He's got a little ladybug on him. So I want to show you how to work with layers and how the artists sort of put this together, because this isn't just one continuous layer. It's broken up into different pieces. So your layers are at the bottom. You hold down. You see it has 5 different layers, and when I click it, it highlights the layer that I'm working with. So you can see that sort of glow on the floor right now because that's the layer that I have. And I could also just point and select the layer. So here you see I'm getting his body. Here I'm getting that sort of moss. And then this little ladybug is its own little layer. So I have the body selected. And I want to show you something really cool. So you don't just have clay to sculpt with. You can also use different materials. So when you're in the layer section, you got to keep holding down the stick and you have it highlighted. What you can do is you can click the settings button, which is on this hand, and you have different options. So I can increase the resolution, flip it, delete it, but I can also mess with the material. And they have this metal material that's super badass. So now I have a shiny metallic rock guy. And if I wanted to change the color of that, I totally could by painting. And I can also adjust the roughness. So here he's more rough versus like a very, very polished. Kind of like it in the middle. You can play with the lighting as well, the inclusion as well. So really cool. Emissive is also another one. So this is kind of like a see-through. I don't use this too often myself, but it can be really, really useful depending on what you're creating. So the metal is pretty fun, and it adds an element that you just can't get. You can't sculpt with real metal in real life, right? Not with your hands, at least. So the ability to sort of just create metal objects from scratch is really awesome. Like this shiny metal leaf. And if I wanted to mess with the color, I of course just like click my color palette, adjust it around. This is the different sort of tones. So I can have red leaves with my yellow. I can add some green leaves. It's really cool. So right now this is set. I'm holding it and I'm only doing one, right? But you have all these settings where you can adjust to make something continuous or singular. So now that single's off, I have this kind of constant brush. So that's great for making more solid objects. But let me show you another layer here. Let's go ahead and click this layer. And we see that it is kind of his his coating here, the moss coating. Actually, you know what? Let's select the ground layer. Oops. So this ground layer is something that I think that I would use a lot. I might want to just stamp this just like I have this leaf to make up a landscape. So I can do that, and you can make your own stamps in Medium. And you can also import stamps. So if you're a ZBrush artist or a digital sculptor already, and you have stamps that you use, you can import those objects directly into Medium and use them just as you would any stamp that you make in here. So to convert something into a stamp, you create a layer, and you select it, and then right on the side, it has stamp. So if I click stamp, it's now added as a custom stamp. And I can get to it when I have my clay tool. I go in settings, stamps, custom, and here it is. So now I just grabbed it, and I could stamp that ground and do whatever I want with it. So that's really cool, because oftentimes you use shapes over and over and over again. And if you have a specific style that that suits you and you want to more quickly create, stamps are an awesome way to do that. So that's kind of the stamp tool in a nutshell. But really powerful and really great if you are an existing digital artist, because you can just import your stuff right in. But let me show you some of the other ones aside from clay. But first I'll show you the subtract. It's all about adding, subtracting with sculpting. So you're adding clay, you're removing clay. And you do that in Medium by double clicking the settings button. It turns it red, as you can see. So now rather than stamping this with this ground, I will remove it with a stamp. So this becomes really useful when you're starting to detail out your piece. And I should probably change the shape of this brush to do this, but it's very smooth. And I can, of course, zoom all the way in, almost my light, so you can get a clear picture. And I'm not making anything, but in particular right now, I'm just showing you the feature set, and then I'll make a little robot or something here in a second. Does anybody have questions about Medium yet?
Michael says, can you manipulate the metal objects, like stretch them out and put them in pieces?
Totally. So the metal objects are just like any other clay layer. So let's go grab this guy. I'm going to erase this just to get it out of my way. And I'm just erasing it by taking the brush, making it big, and removing the clay. So I can't erase this because I'm not on that layer. So let's find this guy. Oops. So let's grab him out. And then I'm going to erase this stuff. So this is an object just like any other. So if I wanted to remove, I should change the light, shouldn't I? It's a little, oops. That's good enough. So I can just come in here and just like my other layers. And this is really cool because you would never be able to do this in real life. I can't just remove a metallic object like I can here. So it's just like any other layer. It just adds this really cool aesthetic to it. And some of the other tools I'll show you that are pretty cool. You have a swirl tool. So I've seen this used for like adding detail to trees or for like simulating some water. But what it does is it kind of spins around, as you see, and swirls the clay. And it feels really good. It's almost like pushing your hand through water. has this cool sound that you might be hearing. And you can kind of make all these crazy swirly shapes. And you have the smudge tool. So the smudge tool kind of just pulls it together, and it's a little bit like inflate, but it's more pulling the different layers around it together and smudging them to make it a more smooth texture, as you can see. So that's smudge, and of course all these you adjust going up or down the different size, and that changes the level of detail that you can achieve. So you can get really fine, or you can like make this really small, make your brush really big, and like smudge his whole face. Or zoom yourself all the way in, right? Make your brush small and do something with, say, the eyes. So the scale is one of the most incredible features in VR, honestly. I mean, you just, it's so natural and it feels so good, and you just can't do it in real life. It's something that I think is really unique to the medium. You also have flatten. So flatten tool, you kind of push in. One cool thing about the flatten tool, I'll do it over here, is it stays where you tell it. So if I start here and I push down, I can pull up again and it's gonna stay in that same location. And then I can really work around it, and I don't have to worry about like accidentally making this much lower than the other side. You get this very consistent flattening. So that's the flatten tool, and you can see it makes that sort of cylinder. So anywhere that touches, it'll flatten. So if I go over here, it's going to start flattening that. And then the cut tool. So the cut tool is probably my least used tool, but what it allows you to do is essentially cut out something into its own layer. So now that piece, well, I guess I didn't do it right. But it's not a tool that I use too often because I usually just create a new layer. That's usually much easier for me. But you have inflate, which we kind of showed in that tree demo. Oh, I'm backwards. So deflate, as you just saw, is when it's red. And make like little potholes, right? And then when it's green, we inflate. And now you can see I'm kind of like moving my left hand, my control hand, while I'm doing this. And it gives you this really smooth control. It's very nice to be able to do that. So the inflate tool is a very basic tool that does a lot, and it's great for smoothing things out. It's great for adding some texture. It's great for a lot of things. What else? Smooth. So smooth, it does exactly what you think it does. Oops, I'm red. Where's my, oh, there it is. So smooth will just get rid of all these little rough edges you can see and start making them much smoother. So if I go to something a little bit more rough, maybe let's go to this guy. Oops. Select this layer. And now we lose that mossy texture because we're smoothing it out. Looks way different and not even close to as cool. And then paint, of course. So I can change the color of anything by just simply painting it. And I have control over my brush size and everything. It feels really natural. It sounds great too. I love the sound effects, but the paint is really well done. It's incredibly lifelike and super easy to use. So I guess that's the basic rundown of these tools here. You saw the different materials, which you do by selecting a layer which you can click on it, and then while you have it, go to Settings, Material. And if I wanted to duplicate this layer, I totally could. Pull them out. So you have this sort of copy mechanism. What else can you do in here? If I wanted to flip it, I could. Where'd he go? So we just flipped. As you see, it's pointing the other direction. And you could also do that right here. I'm gonna clear this. I'm gonna do something new. Kind of start with a blank canvas here and show you the different stamps. So when you have the clay tool, you click this settings button and you have access to all these different stamps. So I'm gonna do a little robot guy. Let's start with mechanical. What's a good head shape? Maybe something like this, or maybe this guy right here. All right, let's do this. So I'm going to oh, I don't like that color at all. I'm gonna start gray, and we'll paint them later. I'm gonna do single for this, so it's more precise. So when you do single, you'll get a lot more of the details that show up. When you have continuous, you oftentimes get a sort of smudging of details because any little movement and it's adding clay. So if you want the actual stamp itself to stand out, it's good to use the single tool. And since this is its own layer, I can rotate it around. Let's go here. And let's make some room for his eyes. So we'll get a little circular. Make it subtract. There we are. I don't really like the position there. Perfect. And then let's add a little texture over his eyes. What are we working with here? That works. I'm gonna put a little, oops. It's a little strange. Am I on single still? So if you have questions, please shout them out. Yeah, sure, why not? Okay, and then let's make room for his robot neck. Cool. And what should we use for his neck? Let's go to organic.
John says, would it be correct to assume this is largely for model generation, and that if you'd like to rig a mesh, you have to export it?
There's not meshes in Medium, but you're creating a 3D object here, so you can export this into any sort of 3D software and manipulate it further. But for rapid iteration and for sort of getting your idea out there, the speed at which you can do it in Medium is just incredible. But yeah, for more of like the meshes and like different textures and stuff, you're not going to be able to do that in Medium right now, as far as I know. So there we have his neck. I'm going to start a new layer here just in case I mess up. And let's add his body. Let's go back to this guy. Let's add him. Nice. I'll make a little area for his arms. Yeah, maybe a little more to the right. Cool. And then I'll use that same joint for his arms. Oops.
Can this be 3D printed? How easily?
Totally, super easily. So you can take this and drop it into any 3D printing program and go for it. And you need to like have it set up. If you have things floating in the air, it probably won't 3D print the way you want it to, but it's super, super easy to 3D print. Some little hands. And then he needs some sort of, yeah, let's do this guy for his, oh no. That works. So sometimes on single, you don't get the full grab, but that's okay. All right, and he needs little legs. What do we do? What do we do for the legs? Let's go back to that joint that we were using. That little guy, and let's add some legs. I'm gonna make a new layer here. And you know what? Let's make these metal. He deserves to be metal, I think, since he's a robot. So let's make both the layers metal. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna create that new layer and keep going here. Oops. Okay, let's go. And you need some wheels here. What can we use for wheels, or like little gears and stuff, so that he can roll around? Maybe back in mechanical. Yeah, there we go. Some wheels. Let's go to the other side. Alright, he's got wheels, and now there needs to be something that they are rotating around. I don't think that these are very aligned. I guess I'll go up with this guy too. That's better. So these wheels need something. Let's go something cloth maybe. Yeah, that should work. So we'll go in and make this little, I'm not gonna have to take single off. And I'm just gonna kind of those are very big wheels and not very sturdy looking, but you know what? It's okay. We can always smooth it out. So why don't we do that? Let's smooth out these guys. And then these things usually have some texture to them, some like grippies. So I'm gonna go in and take the, oops, I need the clay tool. Let's go to another stamp. Let's find something that I can use that's kind of sharp, has an edge to it. That'll work. So this is a cool thing. Like, the shapes can do so much. There's an amazing artist. His name is Geo, and he's doing crazy detailed faces and clothing. And what he does is he'll grab something like, let's say, this hook tool, and use it to kind of come in here and add these really like nice details. So you can kind of like dig in, you see, and cut into the clay and add these really cool details. So just because the shape is like a horn, it doesn't mean it has to be a horn. You can use it for whatever you want, you know, go crazy with it. But yeah, don't forget that you have this subtraction feature. So if you can't seem to find what you're looking for, it might be just in a shape that you're not considering. So don't be afraid to just like play around with the different shapes, you know, as you're walking around in the real world and you see things, take notice of their shape, the different geometries that are keeping them together. It's really cool. Once you've been in VR long enough and played with these tools, you have this new look on the world, and you start thinking of all the amazing things that you can create. And I'm having a ton of fun just sort of playing around with ideas in Medium and in Quill and in Tilt Brush. And I think if you give it a chance, even if you're not a professional sculptor, which I am far from a professional sculptor, I'll be the first to tell you, I still have a ton of fun and I learn so much. And it's this very mind-expanding creative process that's incredibly fulfilling and really beautiful, the fact that I'm able to do this, because I would have never in a million years picked up Maya and learned how to do or ZBrush and learned how to do any sort of sculpting on a digital tool set. It's just so much more complicated than Medium, and this is so natural and human, this process. It makes it really, really fun. So I'm just adding, you know, little, I don't know, rough details, some grip to it, and let's like make these more. I am in Oculus Medium, for those just joining, and I am sculpting with digital clay. I'm making a little robot guy. I don't know what his name is. Does anybody have a name for him? What does this guy look like? Or maybe it's a girl. What does she look like? I need an idea. Alright, so let's paint this. Let's paint this guy. I'm going to... Let's go back to my clay. I'll just use this. Oops, wrong layer. Let's do like a bright yellow in the middle. And then let's do a red around the sort of outside here. So this is what's so awesome. Like, the fact that I'm able to make this so big and go in and really make sure I only get the part that I want red is awesome. No, almost got the only part that I want. Bob? You can do better than that, Damien. Is there any robots named Bob? Are there really? I've never met a robot named Bob. Doesn't look like a very useful robot. I don't know what he would do. Maybe he's just friendly. I don't like that red at all, so I'm gonna get rid of it. And I'll do his eyes. Let's do just white. Oh, different layer. white doesn't seem to show that much on the shiny metal. So it's interesting how the paint looks different on the different materials, because if I were to paint this white, it would look way, way different than on that metal material, as you can see. Let's go ahead and just do that. Balby? Balby and Iron Bob? But I like that. Who had Bali? He wins. Paulo, you win. Now you gotta ask VR Scout what you won. I'm not in charge of that. Jonathan can send you a cardboard or something, maybe. Putting you on the spot, Jonathan. I'm sorry. So I'm just kind of detailing here. I'm not going to go too much further because you can literally sit in here and detail forever. It's this guy. Let's give some ground for him to stand on. For Bob or Balby. Balby needs a place to stay. So I still have my paint tool, but this is worth noting. So whatever tool I have, when I click settings, I'm in the settings of that tool. So this is paint. I have the spray, I have the brush, I can change the opacity, all that stuff. I can constrain to a line. So I'll show you if I only wanted to paint something in particular, I can. I don't even think I have paint right now. Anyways, you can paint, or like you can add clay. So let's go to clay. In a line. So here, if I only want the horns on this line, I can do that. So it's kind of like your ruler tool, right? And you can see that kind of did this really interesting thing that, I mean, you never know what's going to happen when you start playing around, but this looks nothing like this horn, but it has this kind of really cool texture to it that would be really hard to achieve otherwise. So it's fun to sort of play around with the different settings and see what comes of it, because these might be great elements for something. I don't know, it kind of looks like a piece of barb, like rebar almost, this little detail. But you never know how it's going to turn out. Like, one shape can be so many things. I mean, it's fun to play around with them. So, okay, let me add this ground here. 3D printed stands, maybe, looks like it. And then I'll show you one of the other much cooler pieces than Balby, and we could start wrapping up. So if you have questions, please let me know so that I can. Yes, I will get to that right now. So there we go. That is Balby. What a guy. All right, let's save it. Quick save. Balby. And if I wanted to record and share this online, I can do that with the record feature. So begin, and we're recording. So however I'm moving through here, that's the way it's gonna look. I can scale, sort of move around, push them out. And it's saved. So if I wanted to export this, boom, click export, and there, it's exported. It'll be in my folder as a 3D object. That easy. So let's check out some of the other ones. Let's go to this guy's. There we are. So this is using that emissive brush. that I was talking about. That's why it has that glow. So the names aren't on them. It says, oh, right here. Sculpted by Razmig Mavlian. So this is Razmig Mavlian. Sorry if I'm totally destroying your name. But this sort of glow comes from that emissive brush. So got a guy's kaiju. If I wanted to take maybe like a picture, I just go in here. And if I wanted to be in the picture, I could totally take a selfie. Kind of cool. And let me get rid of that picture tool. What else we got? Let's go to Box Store. This is by Goro, who is an artist for Oculus Story Studio and a total badass. Where'd it go? Floating. So he's got some of like Balby's cousins in here at the robot store. But he has a little Oculus stamp right there. Go inside. All these little boxes. It's really cool. So you can see like something like this lamp, really simple, right? This is a stamp, a couple lines, and a ball tool, and then he must have used like deflate just to kind of give it that shape. But it's not a lot of work to make something like this. And you kind of can play with the light. So if I wanted to change the way this all looked, I'm going to scene edit. Where's that light hiding? Oh, the light's inside. So I like change that. Let's go change the background, make it nighttime. Settings, background. Oh, it didn't work. Oh well. The robot lights? That's that emissive brush. So when you have the emissive brush, you can get that glowy feel. And to do that, and same here, right, with the metal. So this is different layers, and that's how he's kind of getting that feel. But remember that you do that by going to your layers, and then whatever layer it is that you're selecting. Like, let's see, that's the metal layer. So you see, oh, whoa, that's all of that. But it does those pieces separate. I'm gonna click back. But if I go to that, and I go and I hit settings, I could change it to that emissive, and it gives it that glow. In this case, it didn't give it the glow, but for some of the other colors, it would. Oh, is this little robot dog? What's up, buddy? Scaling is really fun. You can create, I mean, this is like one shot, but you can create a whole environment. And you could take that environment, export it, drop it into Unity, build on top of it. It's really pretty awesome, the speed at which you can create all this stuff. All right, I'll show you one other piece and then we'll wrap it up. Is there any particular pieces? Let's go. Oops. We got face, which we've done. This guy we've done. These two we've done. So we got a plane, swamp monster, magician, road trip. This is also by Goro. The plane. This is by John Paul Sommers. Let's get the plane. cartoony. But you see, something like this is, I mean, you can make this so easily. This is just, you know, circles that are kind of placed and then maybe, I don't know, blended together a little bit. I mean, these are very basic shapes, right? It's not really complicated to jump in and create something fun in Medium. And like for kids, you can imagine like jumping in here and creating an action figure or some sort of doll or some object, and you could print it and then you can keep it forever. I mean, if I was able to do that as a kid, I would be all over that. So there's a level of creativity that's unlocked when you make the ease of using a tool so accessible. And as VR becomes more prolific and as we get it out there to more and more people, we're going to start seeing artists come out of the woodwork, and these beautiful things are going to be everywhere. So it's a pretty lucky time to be involved. And if you're watching this live stream, if you have VR and you want to play with this stuff, or you're an artist, you can always come to VR Scout or hit them up on Facebook, and they love artists just like me, and they would be happy to show you kind of the goods. But I encourage everybody to jump in and play in Medium and test it out. And it's a very professional tool. You could do a lot with it, but it's so easy because you're just, you know, moving with your hands through space that anybody can do it. So don't be intimidated. Get in there and just sort of play around, and you'll have a ton of fun. But thank you guys for watching, and let us know if there's any more questions, and I will see you next time.